You have to understand, when I watch some of the people that I've been watching over the last few weeks, these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid agitators. These people aren't normal, like, oh, gee, that, they're incensed about anything.
Woo! That's a sigh right there. I'm Dr. Haydée Brown.
And I'm Dr. Sonya Sloan.
And we are AYA,
Black and Brown Women Disruptors in Healthcare and Beyond. Okay, so we're going to take a deep dive today into the whole Minneapolis ICE shootings. You guys already know it has devastated a major city in the United States, Minneapolis. And now it's igniting all these protests today across the United States, as well as we're questioning what ramifications this is going to have, not just on us, because healthcare professionals were killed, but also what is the accountability for the law enforcement, as well as the fact that our communities no longer trust our government and this country. Let's roll this clip.
Alex Pretti was shot and killed. He is seen at 8:58 a.m. Saturday holding his phone at a distance from immigration enforcement officers in an apparent attempt to record a nearby arrest. An eyewitness captured this video of Pretti filming the arrest. At no point does he appear to display a weapon. A minute later, Pretti appears to be using his phone to record two bystanders interacting with a federal officer before that officer is seen shoving one of them across the street.
Do not push them into the traffic!
Another camera angle shows the officer shove one of those individuals into Pretti. You can see the two holding on to each other. The confrontation escalates. Both of Pretti's hands are visible. One holds the phone, the other he held up seemingly to protect himself from pepper spray.
Whoa!
Pretti is seen being pepper sprayed. Three officers grapple with him until he's taken down and held on the frozen pavement. Another group of officers then surrounds him. At 9:01, the federal officer in a gray jacket emerges from the scrum with a gun that appears to match the one Pretti had a permit to carry. Almost simultaneously, the first shot is fired. Officers step back. Within 5 seconds, 9 more shots, and soon after, the officer is heard. Pretti died at the scene.
I just want to take a couple of moments to just note that we have seen several murders, really, right? These several deaths that have happened on camera. And I just want to be sure that we're not becoming desensitized to it. We watched a man die in that video, and it's important for us to acknowledge that and process that. With that said, let's just start with the latest developments. 37-year-old Alex Pretti, an intensive care unit nurse at Minneapolis VA Medical Center, was shot and killed by federal immigration agents on January 24th, 2026, during a federal operation in Minneapolis. He was shot multiple times by officers from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection and Border Patrol in an encounter that has sparked both widespread outrage and fierce political debate. We're diving straight into the story, and it's not just heartbreaking, it really is a flashing neon sign exposing the double standard of justice in this country. So this is about Alex Pretti. Now let's start with the facts and not the spin. Pretti had no significant criminal history. He held a valid Minnesota concealed carry permit, and by every measure, he was a law-abiding citizen. In fact, there's video showing him lead a tribute to a fallen veteran at the VA hospital where he was employed. Now, federal authorities initially claimed that he was armed and resisting. The funny thing is, the video tells a different story. So the bystander footage shows Alex holding a cell phone, not a gun, and he wasn't resisting. He was trying to help a woman who had been shoved to the ground by officers. He was being a good Samaritan in a concealed carry state. And for that, he was surrounded and killed by heavily armed Border Patrol agents in his own community. And let's talk about this in contrast. Kyle Rittenhouse, a also white 17-year-old male who crossed state lines with a rifle, killed 2 people in Kenosha, was acquitted. He was celebrated, elevated, and even invited to the Trump White House as a Second Amendment hero. In contrast, we have Alex Pretti, also a white man, with a phone trying to help someone and was killed on the spot. Same country, same constitution, same race, and radically different outcomes. And this is what selective justice looks like, right? When killing makes you a hero and helping makes you a threat, our democracy continues to be in trouble. Local officials, community leaders, and even some Republican lawmakers have called for an independent investigation into the shooting, which is a rare position that really underscores how explosive this entire incident is. And this killing wasn't an isolated incident, right? This has set off continued national protests to protect all people from lethal force by ICE. And it wasn't that long ago that the episode happened with Renee Good. So this is a reality, right, that Black and brown communities have warned the country about for generations, that when the state uses violence, the accountability is optional. Let's show the Renee Good clip.
Newly released cell phone video obtained by CBS News for the first time shows the ICE agent's point of view and what are likely Renee Good's last words.
Fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
The agent, who appears to be filming this with his cell phone, approaches the car. Her car is blocking traffic. He circles around to the driver's side.
That's fine. U.S. citizen.
As Good's wife, who is also filming, tries to get inside the car, other officers rush toward the driver's side door.
Out of the car. Get out of the
Good seems to try to back up and then drives forward just before the same agent fires his gun in his right hand.
You've got to be a little brainwashed to
that statement alone. So earlier in January this year, January 7th to be exact, we had another Minneapolis resident that started this whole thing, really. 37-year-old Renée Nicole Good was shot and killed by an immigration ICE customs enforcement agent, a white female. And she was actually trying to drive away at the scene. And apparently the ICE agent shot into her car, and that ICE agent was Jonathan Ross. And despite the conflicting claims from federal authorities, she was somehow a threat to the officer. But we do know now with independent videos and eyewitness accounts that the threat was no imminent danger to him, and he shot anyway. And the medical examiner that examined her body has ruled it a homicide. That means she was killed in cold blood, And so being a good citizen of the United States, she was a mother of 3. She was detailed and had deepened sense in the tragedy of all the things that have happened in Minneapolis now. She was there protesting and really probably trying to help someone to get away. But it cost her life. And for everyone that's listening, and with any medical or public health lens, there are a few things that we really do need to consider right now in the United States. So number one, the use of force and the trauma response. So Pretti was struck with not just 1, not just 2, but at least 10 bullets, according to reports. And despite all the attempts by the officers to administer aid, he died at the scene. That's not just the statistic. That's healthcare worker who's trained in emergency medicine and trauma care. He was killed in broad daylight by an officer claiming self-defense. But the cameras definitely said something different, right? So number 2, conflicting narratives, the real clinical impact here for us as medical people. Pretti's family and colleagues have disputed the claims that what they said happened actually is what happened. So many stress that Pretti was trying to de-escalate and assist, not cause more violence. And now the government gives their own narrative of that he was a possibility of an insurrectionist. What? Nonetheless, there's also the third factor here that we have to consider, the psychological trauma across all communities in the United States right now. So when you have a nurse, someone whose job is to preserve life, and it's only been 6 years ago that nurses and doctors were celebrated because of during COVID, we were the heroes, right? But now it reverberates far beyond Minneapolis. And so as first responders, hospital staff, community health workers, doctors, surgeons, we're all feeling the impact now. We're all worried, especially given what has happened in this protest that's supposed to be, a valid protest, should not be attacked. In the middle of a cold winter blizzard, it's now more agents going into Minneapolis. And so what does that mean as far as our life as healthcare providers? You don't have to look too far for nurses and doctors and caregivers that are dealing with just trauma every day of what we work with, but now our own lives are in danger once again after COVID. Dr. Brown.
So, our constitutional rights are being steadily eroded by this administration, right? Neither Renee Nicole Good, Alex Pretti, nor Keith reporter was tried actually for a crime. None were convicted by a jury. None was afforded due process. And instead, all three received what amounts to immediate death sentences at the hands of federal immigration officers. That is not law enforcement. That is state violence. And the irony deepens. Despite multiple local judges refusing to issue warrants, the Department of Justice has now arrested 4 individuals, all Black, not for killing anyone, but for reporting on what is happening in Minnesota. 2 are journalists, Don Lemon and Georgia Fort, and 2 are activists, Traheen Jean Cruz and Jamel Lydell Lundy. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, all 4 were arrested, quote, in connection with the coordinated attack on City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota, end quote. Press freedom advocates say the arrests represent a dangerous escalation where journalism and protest are treated as crimes while lethal force by federal agents goes unchecked. And let's be clear about what that signals. When people can be killed without trial and journalists can be arrested without warrants, the First and Fifth Amendments are no longer theoretical. They are under active threat. The shooting of unarmed protesters and conscientious objectors has been followed by the criminalization of speech itself. You know, history tells us plainly, you cannot arrest your way out of violating constitutional rights. Suppression does not restore order, it just accelerates unrest. And across the country, healthcare workers are responding. Nurses, people trained to preserve life, are mobilizing because they recognize what this moment represents. When violence becomes policy, health becomes political, trauma becomes systemic, and silence becomes complicity. And that's why nursing colleagues nationwide have stepped forward in support of Alex Pretti. Let's roll the clip.
We want ICE off our streets. We want ICE off our streets. We want ICE off our streets. ICE out of Portland.
It was absolutely devastating to watch someone be executed. We've seen this from every angle. And to have to be lied to by our government and saying that like it was something other than it was when we see video evidence of it, it's staggering that that someone who is a veteran administration nurse was executed by the government he was serving as well.
And I would go on to say, if you can't get out in the street, there are other ways to protest on social media, calling your congressperson. Definitely, you know, if you can go out to support at this point, because silence is no longer an option in the United States. So this is the largest union of registered nurses in the United States. The National Nurses United has called for a nationwide week of action to honor their nurse, Alex Pretti, who was, we know, killed in cold blood by an ICE officer. So we're demanding accountability. They definitely want to end any of the federal immigration enforcement practices, specifically in Minneapolis, but in so many other cities, that Chicago, New York, Houston, and Los Angeles. We already have seen it in multiple cities, and everyone is tired of it. And we know that their president, Mary Turner, even put out saying, we will fight to protect you at the bedside, and we will fight to protect you in the streets. That's a powerful statement from a nurse that is standing up. And if we have more healthcare professionals across this country standing up in protest, America should wake up. Local chapters in Austin, Salt Lake City, Santa Cruz, Los Angeles have held vigils, marches, all in Pretti's name. And they're urging the lawmakers to rethink this whole ICE funding and operations. And we know some of this is currently in the mix of trying to separate those funds and possibly stall measures that they would get funding. But right now, they are still been funding, and we're paying for it. So these actions underscore some of the critical caregivers that they need to leave the ethics not just at the hospital door, that we shouldn't say anything, but healthcare professionals understand public safety. Number one, we live it every day. Civil rights, as a Black and brown woman, listen, we live it every day. And healthcare outcomes that are not. These things are inseparable. They are combined, and we have to focus on the long term here. And if we don't speak up now, then when will we? So the movement is expanding, and you've got to join this movement. Nationwide demonstrations, they're spreading everywhere. And so students have walked out in Fort Worth, Texas today. Faith leaders are speaking up from pulpits and being very boisterous. Labor unions, community organizations planning walkouts, strikes, protest actions, at least in 250 cities. So we're calling to stop funding ICE. And no, we will not work, will not go to school, and no shopping. Hit them where it counts in their pocketbook, right? So this is a not fringe activism. This is a broad-based civil action rooted in live and lived experiences in the United States right now, people. Dr. Brown, I'm befuddled because I cannot believe we're watching this unfold in our own country.
So then the question is, what comes next, right? Minneapolis is now a national touch point for debates over federal power and civilian oversight, for trust or the collapse of it in law enforcement institutions, for healthcare professionals confronting violence as a social determinant of health. And everyone's saying, when does this accountability begin? And this is what has not happened. No ICE agents have been arrested, no charges, there's no accountability. And while the Justice Department prioritizes journalists and protesters to be arrested, there's a lot that's remained unaddressed. And many Americans recognize that this is just unsustainable. It's a national reckoning where healthcare, civil rights, and public policy collide. And the justice system's response will be watched closely, from federal prosecutors to independent investigators. What do you think, Dr. Sloan?
Yeah, I think, meanwhile, the nation is watching, but other things are developing as well. So, the U.S. Justice Department just released a release of 3 million pages of Epstein-related documents. And did you know, Dr. Brown, by chance, that TikTok changed its parameters that if you even mention Epstein, that you are blocked and your account is taken down? I digress, nonetheless. So these images under this Epstein File Transparency Act are to move to get increased public transparency about this long-standing investigation, which seems to be once again stalled, and all these tactics to distract us, right? So all of this is happening in the backdrop of this rising economic strain. The healthcare is more expensive, groceries cost more, and even just preventative care is now entangled with political fights and parental rights. So underscoring all of the reality of that policy decisions in one arena is a rippling effect into our public health care system, our economic security, and our civil liberties. So this is a moment that we're asking you about your fundamental facts and want you to think about this question, that when will accountability happen for this government? That's the question at hand, because right now we're watching and we're demanding answers and nothing is happening. So that means now is time for more protests, for you to speak up.
We at we're demanding answers, and we want you all to stay empowered, disruptive, and remember that your voice matters. We are contributors to the MeidasTouch Network, proud members of the Meidas Mighty. Please subscribe, like, share, and follow for more updates. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good week.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.